In this video, we'll look at the daily and weekly price action of CleanSpark so we can get a feel for where price is going to move in the short term and the long term. It helps us identify where we're going to add and trim and that kind of stuff. Other than that, though, if you don't want to watch all of this content, long story short, I'm still bullish on CleanSpark and Bitcoin. Currently adding and moving with the volatility on both of those. You can check out my live portfolio on eToro in the description down below, but I've chucked up my stats today on the page there so you can see. Okay, so CleanSpark chart, love it. We've had a really nice move actually off the lows here. We just measure from the bottom there. 55% in kind of 7 or 8 trading days. That's really good. I'm starting to get a little bit excited about miners again. They've been down in the dumps. The short interest still looks fairly high on that one, but we don't get regular updates on that one. So we have to kind of wait and see what's heading with that. Institutions have been absolutely gobbling the heck out of this one. I'll put the chart for that in the news section again for you. I haven't trimmed anything. Honestly, I haven't really added anything either. My risk score on eToro is mainly affected by this position and other miners. It really doesn't like the volatility in them. So as much as I don't want to trim kind of when we get up to $16, $18 area where I've got the yellow lines there, I'm going to have to trim because my risk score on eToro potentially could get pushed to an 8 purely based from this position becoming too outsized. And probably Tesla doesn't help with that either, but I'm loving this chart. We could have a pullback. We can see we bounced a little bit off that red resistance line. You know, technical analysis is not voodoo. It does work. It does give us key areas where price is likely to stick. But I'm not trading this one. Not interested in it. We're getting to the point in the cycle now where we could have a parabolic move any day in any asset related to crypto. So I'm just kind of leaving it as it is. I do plan on mostly being out of this at $20 range. My initial plan earlier in the year was kind of 40, 45. I've lowered my cost basis substantially now on this big drop down. So I don't need to hold it as high to make as much return anymore, which is super important, so I can de-risk quite early. I'll probably leave some running, but again, the price on this is going to really depend on what happens with that bond market arbitrage and what Bitcoin does. A lot of people now are saying Bitcoin, the top's going to be at 120. That would be kind of crazy in my mind. The amount of people buying into this for it to top there would be silly. Institutions aren't going to want to be buying stuff if they're not going to want to pump retail into it at some point. So that's something to bear in mind. Indicator wise though, RSI getting up there a little bit, so we could have a little bit of a cooling. We've obviously got a lot of not great news with stuff in the market over the weekend with Trump's tariff stuff. They've been extended, but it's hard to tell how the market's really going to digest that. The broader market is pushing all-time highs in SPY and QQQ, so a little bit of cool off would be totally normal here. Don't plan on changing much in my portfolio. I might consolidate a few positions, but really nothing major. I'm running really cash light at the minute, ready for the run into year end. I think we're going to get some money sloshing around now. The big beautiful bill has passed. Not particularly beautiful, but it will be beautiful for our portfolios, so I guess that's kind of a win. MACDX Plus looks okay. Nice growth there, and the flow looks really good as well. Let's take a quick look at the weekly though. RSI looks a little bit better, but again, if we can get that back to kind of neutral and restart for the next move higher, that would be super awesome. We're obviously pushing the boundary for this channel here. So a little bit of cool off, maybe build up enough energy to burst through this red resistance line. This gap here should fill relatively quickly. Price moved very swiftly through there several times, but hitting our head on this volume shelf, I would say, is probably quite likely to happen. Again, I'll probably de-risk a little bit in that area. Golden crosses come in on the MACDX Plus, which is nice, but again, that's kind of a lagging indicator, so it's just kind of confirmation bias on that one. But really looks good. A little bit of institutional growth would be nice to see, and flow again looks good on this one. So let's look at the options market, see what that's thinking about. I'm filming this video a little bit later than I normally would, which is interesting because we can see now live in the options market that CleanSpark is rejecting from that kind of area more aggressively. So that's perfect. We want to see that. I want to see it cooling off a little bit. The market was sitting at $12, so it makes sense we've been pushed back below that, especially in the weaker market. We've got a lot of bearish sentiment for this week on here, which is interesting, with lows of $11. I don't think that's going to come unless there's a substantial rolling over in Bitcoin. But, you know, fortune favors the brave, I guess. Push it out a week. So a lot of people sitting at kind of 20 here, which makes sense from what we're seeing, $15. I don't like how this no longer lines up with the scale on the left. It's a little bit confusing to the eye. So $15 resistance would be here. Basically, these lines represent where market makers can inflict the most pain on options traders and institutions with much larger size than retail traders. So they want to keep price under that so they don't have to pay them out when they're in the money on strikes and all that good stuff. Same to the bottom support, so they won't have to pay people in short positions if they can keep price above that. So I know a lot of people are going to say it's market manipulation, but it's just a tool that they're able to use, perfectly legal, perfectly sound, just how they roll. Let's push it out another week, because July is supposed to be really good for Bitcoin traditionally in the part of the bull cycle. Looking a little bit negative here. Really low strikes, $8. Someone must really not like CleanSpark. So in the short term, we've got a quite choppy price range. No one really knows what's going on, which kind of lines up with how the arbitrage play is shaking a lot of people out here. A lot of guessing. But let's push it out to let's go September. I didn't imagine most of my crypto will be out by then. So yeah, towards where I would kind of put the peak parabolic phase of Bitcoin. It's looking quite a mixed bag. A lot of people are quite negative on it, and a lot of people are quite bullish. So institutions are a little bit unsure. This could be hedging and all sorts of stuff on this one. So it's kind of hard to predict given the short interest. A lot of people might be betting that the short interest is really going to pull this down. Let me quick look through here. Not much else exciting. There's really not a whole lot of volume. My voice has got a bit funny. Even though oddly in January there's a lot of interest in much higher prices, which would mean the Bitcoin cycle has been extended. Not sure if I'm on board with that, but we'll have to wait and see what Bitcoin does. Not too much news here for CleanSpark. Kind of got distracted looking at the market open, actually. Interestingly enough, CleanSpark's now down 8% on the day. I kind of like this level as a buy, but I really don't want to do it on eToro because my risk score will not like me adding to that position. So we'll have to see if I can withhold my urges for the day. I might have to get it in a different account. So it's a great back test on that one if it holds it. But anyway, institutions still gobbling the heck out of this one behind the scenes. I know it doesn't look like it, but there's a lot of reasons why. Short interest has come down a little bit, but not really what we'd want to see. We want to see a real collapse in this one. A quick look at Bitcoin. Clearly, it's still following the path we've been thinking it would since. When did we plot this? We dropped my bubble, sorry. Since end of April. I mean, we've had some deviations, but nothing major. Price is really hovering exactly where I thought it would, so I would expect some kind of short-term pullback here. But might not. It might just go. And we're definitely coiling for something. I don't think this is the top. Not really too much more I can say about the patterns there on that one. I'd love for us to push back to this orange 114 level, make a new high, and decide if we're going to break out. I was expecting my pattern to start being incorrect at this point, but it seems to be on the money. Maybe I should have traded that pattern. RSI is neutral, so for something that's so high, we're certainly not getting spicy, so we do have some energy if we do choose to pop. Institution flow looks good. Really nothing to hate about this chart. Would I like it to pull back? Yeah, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want more cheap Bitcoin? Would I love it to moon? Yeah, who wouldn't want their bags to be worth more? So win-win. That's the best way to invest. Be happy when it goes up. Be happy when it comes down. If you can't master those emotions, then it's probably going to be a very, very stressful ride for you, especially in something that can have such large swings like Bitcoin or anything to do with crypto. Really, they can be very volatile. take a quick look at the weekly, the head and shoulders there that I marked in my very crude sketch. That wasn't a price prediction. That was just me pointing out that there's massive head and shoulders there. The measured move of that still getting us to around 150. So that's going to be a really tough area. We could have a market top there, but if things go parabolic, we could easily push up to the 200k range. I really don't know where it's going to go. We're seeing so much buying volume, and there's still that push to keep price low from the market makers. So we're either going to see it just kind of get up to 150 and fizzle out, or we're going to go, boom time. We have to wait and see if they want to let price run. Eventually, they'll run out of ways and tools in which they can manipulate price lower with such a large asset. But we'll have to wait and see. Weekly, again, just a clearer view. Oh, it's got no squish. I hate it when it does that. Squishy. Again, it's easier to see the head and shoulders move there. Bitcoin does really like doing its measured moves. So the last time we had a flag here, we really nailed that with volume as well. So when it does have a breakout, it tends to be very violent to the upside. So that's something to bear in mind. Obviously, as investors, we should know that history doesn't always repeat, but it's normally a good indicator of people watching those patterns. It's the psychology of the market is the more eyes that are on a position, the better the results will normally be. And a lot of eyes are on Bitcoin, so that's why it normally has a good run of that. But every stock has its own personality in relation to technical analysis. So some things that work on one stock will not work on others. Some stocks love doing gap fills, others don't even care about them. So always look at the individual personality of the price action that you're investing in, if those are the tools you're going to use. But on the weekly, price looks good. We're kind of getting a little bit warm, but not really overheated. We can see Bitcoin has no problem getting that spicy. Institution looks good, flows look good, so can't really complain about there. Let's check out Sol though, because we do have a large Solana position now. So right out the gate, Solana's really pushing on that red dotted line there. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of argue that's kind of 5 times pushing up. Generally, the more times price touches an area, the more it wants to break through. So it doesn't always mean the next time it touches it, the 6th time it's going to collapse. That's not what it means. There's a lot of pressure. If you turn this upside down, it'd be easier to see it as a bearish pattern. For some reason, psychologically, we find it harder to justify price going up. We find ways to think of it going down. Typically, Solana has really good moves when it does break out its patterns, because it nails its measured moves nearly every time in the past. So again, lots of eyes on these trades, lots of positioning going into them, and it tends to come with volume as well, which is exactly what we want to see. So I would expect to get to kind of... didn't put a target on that one, did I? So kind of... Let's do this while recording. Measured move on this one, I would expect, if it breaks through at this point, I would expect it to get us to 250, which has confluence with this measured move as well that we were working with, historically speaking, which is nice. So there's confluence there. So I think when we do get a move, it's going to be quick. Downside risk though, we've got a really good volume shelf that we're on, so I'd like to see $1, $2, $3 hold, and then below that we've got more historical support, which isn't going to be as strong as the volume. This volume here represents people buying the stock in that price range. Does that make sense? So when it got to these levels previously, people bought more of it, which means there's more people interested in those prices, which generally offers more support because people tend to add more back. RSI neutral, so good to go either way. MACD Plus looks good, and flow looks good as well. We've had the ETFs. That's going to take a while to sort out, so I would expect to see some momentum building from that. Crypto is picking up a little bit already. CleanSpark still down, but Solana, interestingly, is already green. We like that. Nothing too exciting in price action today, though. We do have this absolutely behemoth cup and handle type pattern here. We did kind of invalidate it there, but if price did manage to execute on that, we'd be getting up to kind of the $399, $400 area, which would be great confluence with a lot of other areas. So I don't think Solana will have a problem going there. It's still undervalued, massively undervalued. I'd like to see it make a really big push. Ethereum as well, I think that's going to do really well. There is a lot of the really well-known fund managers getting involved with Ethereum now, so that's going to be a really good push for that. I don't like the tech as much as I do on Solana. I think it's getting a little bit outdated, but narrative moves crypto, so it's not always about what's undervalued. Yes, in the long term, markets might make better sense of it, but during this parabolic phase, you may as well just throw your knowledge out the window and just pay attention to what price is doing, because it doesn't always follow the fundamentals at that point. That's a wrap. If you enjoyed this content, give it a like, share with your mum, your nan, your dad, your dog, and I will see you tomorrow for Tesla Tuesday.